Brown says, get that India. Big boy.
Call an ambulance! Maybe call a police! Oh, what a shot! What a shot! Campbell killer!
Hello and welcome back to another edition of the Tip Sheet Podcast. As always, I'm your host, John, also known as 4020. Joining me on his lonesome tonight to break down all of the happenings for both the Eels and the NRL is my good mate, Sixties. Big fella, no Clint this week, so going to have to be pulling double duty without him. How you warming up to this task?
Mate, I'm feeling quite buoyant tonight, especially after the excellent news that Matt Arthur will be making his debut off the interchange bench in this weekend's game. I wrote a post that I put up earlier in the afternoon calling on the Eels to use this season as one to build for the future, meaning that I don't just want to see players like Buds and potentially soon Charlie Guymer being elevated to the NRL. I'd like to see elevations throughout the grades. Let's have a look at some of our young pathways players at the next level up from where they're at the moment, because I think we need to know where we are at as a development club with these players and whether we are right to go with some of them, where they're at in terms of those that aren't at NRL level yet, maybe how far off they are, and also how much recruitment needs to be done.
Mm-hmm.
So, I guess it was timely that as I was writing that, there was starting to have some rumours coming through about Buds Arthur debuting, and so it was timely for that reason. But as I said, to me, it's not just a matter of one or two players. I want to see it being a policy that's adopted throughout the three grades, because if we're being honest, we're no chance of playing finals football in the NRL, and we are only an outside chance of playing finals football in the lower grades, and they'll really have to, lower grades will have to string some wins together and maybe be at the stage where a few results go their way for them to qualify. It doesn't mean they can't, but if we're in this position, let's try to extract a positive out of this season, and I believe that we can. So,
And the big picture, regardless of whether it's Hannay, Riles, or maybe another mysterious contender in that new head coaching gig, recruitment's going to be a tough gig for the first year as well. It's not exactly bumper market in terms of who's out there in the open player market. So the Eels are going to have to look internally, and that's why I think pushing these guys up to, from the ball graduates to flag, the flag eligible players to cup, and then those cup players like Buds and Guymer to NRL, it's going to be crucial this year to see what the Eels have in their playing stocks internally.
Well, further to that as well, we're going to have new franchises coming in over the next few years. So it's going to be a very competitive market to recruit quality players. There's going to be players who are going to be demanding maybe an awful lot more when they come to sign their next contract. And maybe there's also the potential to lose even more players than what we have in the past from our pathways to other clubs as new franchises look to fill their playing stock. So, and especially when it's ones that are, either, let's say if Western Australia were to come in, a club like that doesn't have a junior league that is providing a strong pathway as yet for NRL players, or PNG where it's the national game, but they're going to obviously have to sprinkle players from NRL pathway systems as well as NRL stars in with their local products. So it's a very, very busy time at the moment. Now, something as well, John, that I wanted to throw to our listeners before we get into the podcast is we're really keen to maybe address some questions that our listeners might have for our opinions on different things. So if you'd like to send in a question to our podcast, if you can either pop it in the replies to the podcast in the post, in our post on TCT, or reply to our socials with a question, either way, that's fine. Likewise, when we're down with our live appearances, if there's something you'd like us to discuss, come up and have a chat to us at our live appearances in Parramatta Leagues Club. Let us know some of the topics you'd maybe like us to dive into, that I'm sure we can fit into our news podcast. We might have a new segment that we include, being the questions from fellow supporters. So if you'd like to do that, please get in touch with us. We'd love to hear from you. We do get questions sent to us from time to time, but if we actually make that a feature on our podcast, then that can be something where, you send the question in, we'll dive into our takes, our answers on whatever you want to throw our way.
Well said, mate. And before we go any further, as always, take a moment to shout out our sponsors for TCT and the tip sheet, which is Star Partners Real Estate, Auburn, Rowan and Parramatta. As always, Greg and the crew are fantastic partners for both myself, 60s and TCT. So thanks, Star Partners and Greg. And on that note, mate, let's get right into it, because we've got plenty to talk about, including that big debut that you just mentioned.
News team, assemble!
Yes, mate, it is a big news episode coming the listeners' way. And we're going to kick things off, as you said, with the debut this weekend of Matt Budds Arthur off the interchange bench, the rising dummy half in the Eels stocks. What's your thoughts on his selection, John?
Well, it's been a hell of a week/fortnight for Budds, hasn't it? Going from captaining the under-19s to a pulsating victory over Queensland, and what was one of the better under-19s and clashes at State of Origin we've seen for a number of years in terms of being a legitimate contest, backing that up into an NRL debut. And you talk about foundational steps forwards, that's one of the most important ones you can take as a young player, isn't it? Getting that first cap under your hat, and goodness knows he's earned it this year. We've spoken about him. It feels like every wrap-up of the Cup, he's been one of the standout, if not the standout players for a team that had almighty struggles early on and then found its way more recently. And he's been at the heart of it. And you look at the result in the weekend and he wasn't playing. And it's not a surprise that they got blown out a bit. So, yeah, this has been very much well-deserved. I'm not here saying he's going to come out and dominate right out of the gate 60s, because the NRL is a different beast. But the time is right. He needs these reps. The club need these reps. I'm hitting wood as hard as I can here. He is part of the future of this club. And obviously there's going to be some hurdles to cross in terms of getting a contract negotiated because of the background here, but he needs to be an Eel.
Yeah, absolutely. I've long thought that he is going to be one of the best, if not the best, locally produced dummy halves to come through the Eels juniors. And I know this is a big call, but I'm talking about of all time. And obviously, as I said, I'm talking about locally produced. So there's been some great dummy halves that have played at the Eels, such as Stephen Edge.
Mm-hmm.
There are players that don't qualify as being locally produced, but he's put in such hard work over the years. He's been with his father, Brad, being the coach. He's always spent school holidays down there training with the team. If they've had their dummy halves involved in a particular spine drill and they've needed someone to pass the ball from dummy half for drills for other players, Buddsy would be called in at, like 12, 13, 14 years of age to be feeding the passes from dummy half to the players. And he had a rocket pass even at a young age. So he's he's put the time in. Remember, there was the famous photo of him leading Jarryd Hayne in a conditioning run.
Soldiers Beach, I
way
think it
back
was.
way back in 2018.
Yeah.
So that'll give you an idea of his age then. So that's 6 years ago. So Woodsy would have been all of 13 years of age back then. So look, he's lived and breathed Parramatta. He's come through the Parramatta system. He's got great mates that have come through the system with him. The socials have been a buzz with the other players celebrating his elevation. I had a chance to talk to Woodsy on Saturday when we were covering the lower grade matches. He was there to support his mates out on the field. Obviously, I didn't talk to him about any ambitions of or when he expected to play first grade or anything like that, because that's not the sort of thing you put to a player on the spot with to talk about themselves in that regard. But I will, when we get into talking about the Eels performances in the under-19s Origin match, I will share a little bit of what he spoke about with regard to that Origin match. So, but apart from all that, a well-deserved debut. I wanted to see this sort of thing happening between now and the end of the year to give, from a selfish point of view as supporters, it's great to be able to dig into something that's exciting, something new on the horizon, and seeing more of the younger players gives us that.
Yep.
But more than just something selfish for the supporters, as we spoke about in the introduction to the podcast tonight, I think it is really that opportunity to salvage a genuine positive out of the rest of this season. Let's see what the young players have got, and look, we don't expect miracles out of these young players. This is now their big learning experience, whether they get elevated from SG ball to flag, from flag to New South Wales Cup, from New South Wales Cup to first grade. Each step that they move up is that learning experience, and we need that learning experience to be happening now, because I think each player that has that potential to be elevated is ready for it, and I think they've earned it. So, let's wish Woods all the best for this, and then we start to look ahead to the potential for someone like Charlie Geimer to also get his debut in the near future.
And then I was going to say very quickly on Woods this weekend taking on the Novocastrians. What sort of minutes are you expecting from him? He's coming off the interchange, working as a deputy to Brendan Hands. We're talking 15, 20, 25 minutes, maybe less?
My guess would be maybe 10 minutes either side of half time.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, roughly 15 to 20 minutes. I don't think he'll be overexposed in his first grade debut. And look, I think that would be a good number to be working from as well. And, if he retains his spot on the bench going forward, well, then Barrett can start to look at changing up the minutes or the timing of his injection into the game. But it will be interesting to see how Woods adjusts to first grade. We saw it's been a transition into playing open age football that he's had this year, because he was SG ball into flag at the end of last year, then started this season in New South Wales Cup after a very good pre-season, and he's been one of the most consistent performers, if not the most consistent performer in New South Wales Cup. And I'd like to, I believe he will be just as comfortable in first grade, even though it will be a big step up. I think he'll thrive. So
yeah, I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, but all our best to him in that debut. And just moving on now with more Eels news. We had what was considered a surprise inclusion in the Eels' search for a new coach, with Dean Young being mentioned as being in the mix. Look, it was no surprise that the Eels' search wasn't restricted to those that have been mentioned in the media, nor was it a surprise that that wasn't necessarily down to the last two as yet. But, John, I hadn't expected to hear the name Dean Young. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about this one, 60s. We've obviously spoken at length and on multiple occasions about the likes of Hayne and Riles and what they bring to the table, given that they were the rumoured two favoured candidates out of that opening batch of interviews. Dean Young definitely has come from left field, and the way the media framed it is that Wayne Bennett has been the one that recommended him to the Eels. And again, that just feels very odd to be rejected by the man himself and then take on his recommendation. And look, not to say that Dean might not be a great coach, but Wayne Bennett's recommendation has exactly been a glowing thing in terms of follow-up success to where Wayne's been. If you look most recently at Jason Demetrio, and I think there's a few more as well, that go beyond that. Wayne himself, obviously, one of the greatest coaches of all time, but maybe his stamp of approval isn't necessarily, a sure thing. So, yeah, odd 60s that it would come, that he wouldn't be really mentioned in the opening suite of candidates, but then suddenly he's in contention in the final, what was the final two, now the final three? I don't know. I don't know what to make of it.
Look, I think the main thing I'd make of it, John, is that the media aren't always on top of what's going on. And I mean, that might sound like now the Captain Obvious statement, but it's just further evidence that you can't always take what's being reported in the media as gospel. So, I mean, they're the ones that I suppose have then declared that, they found out that he's also in the mix, but they had it down to just Riles and Hayne as the last two. And I'm not even sure that at that stage that the Eels had even interviewed Trent Barrett. That's how quick they went. They went with that story. So it was. Look, I think they went off early with that. Now, it may well be that it comes down to a choice between Riles and Hayne, and we keep hearing one's ahead of the other, and then it'll flip around, and I guess it's continued clickbait for Eels supporters who are desperate to see a coach being named. And look, it's not just Eels supporters that are desperate for a coach to be named. The players themselves want to know. It's not rocket science that a player wants to know who the coach is going to be before they commit to a new contract. And when you've got the likes of Jermaine Hopgood, who's looking to negotiate a new deal with the Eels, or someone like Bailey Simonson, who is looking to extend his stay at the club, they'd want to know who the coach is going to be.
Yep.
That's just...
And look, from the club's perspective, again, we haven't missed them with some of our criticism, and by that same token, they need to do due diligence. But this is one of those tricky situations where you need to do your diligence, but also not drag your heels. You want to make sure you get the right man, but you got to do it at the right pace too, because we talked about that player market. Externally, even if it is a relatively barren market, you still have to make moves. The Eels do not have a fleshed out roster. Internally, you need to make sure that you can lock up someone like Matt Arthur and make sure that he is committed to the Eels, long term. And you're not going to do that without a, CEO, commander-in-chief for the team. We need a new head coach, and one way or the other, it needs to be done soon. And I know that Origin's complicating things with Josh Hayne and the ability to sit down with him, but this is the sort of thing where you start moving mountains, because this is the future of the club we're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, if it was something where we weren't in the situation that we're in, and you say, how long should a search for a coach take? And sometimes the answers might be, well, how long's a piece of string? But let's not make that a full spool of string.
Yeah, exactly.
It's we have to. I guess it's a criticism that is valid too of the Eels processes, that things take just too long, and especially in that recruitment and retention area. And we don't want to see the same thing happen with the coaching. We've got to get that balance right, because, as you said, we want the due diligence, but at the same time, we need a decision within a reasonable time frame so that we can get on with the process of getting a roster together for next year, or certainly making very definite roster decisions. And that's a whole topic for maybe a dedicated podcast about what we do with the roster going forward, because there's certainly, I think, some tough choices that need to be made, because the reality is probably that unless there are cuts made to the roster, I don't see that there would be significant recruitment made, because we've invested very, very heavily in retentions over the years. And we've seen the result of that is that when you invest heavily in the retentions, the key retentions that the Eels have made, that there just hasn't been the capacity to spend money on significant recruitment. So I think that's where the Eels have to do a big reevaluation. But anyway, we now move on, because it is Teamless Tuesday, John, and there's not just the Matt Arthur debut in the NRL team, but we've got some returns, some selection decisions, and then there's a real flow of selection decisions through the lower grades as well.
Yeah, so starting in the NRL, as always, obviously Matty Arthur, the headline act, with his NRL debut on the cards this Saturday against the Newcastle Knights, 5:30 p.m. out at McDonald Jones Stadium. But the backline has been bolstered by what we believe is the return of Mike Acevo. We've said that a couple of times in recent weeks, but it looks like he's finally made a recovery from that hamstring injury that saw him miss games against the Bulldogs and the Roosters. So he takes his place on the left wing. That means that
I am expecting him to play, John.
That's good.
I am expecting him to play.
I said in Teamless Tuesday, Sixties, as much as there have been legitimate gripes about his play and the consistency of it this year, and even going into last year, he is a sight for sore eyes in a backline that has been ravaged by injuries and a lack of depth this year. So welcome back Mike Acevo. He's on that left flank, which means Blaze Talangi's on the right, where he partners Will Penasini. That allows Sean Russell, to move from the wing to left centre, where we believe he's starting to carve out a bit of a niche for himself there. He'll partner Micah on the left. Quinton Gufferson, of course, is the fullback and captain. Dylan Brown is at 6. Mitchell Moses named to back up. Now, we're going to have to wait and see if this one's 60s, because there were reports today filtering through that he's picked up a bit of a niggle in his foot, and he's going to already given up the goal kicking duties at Origin. So the Eels might have second thoughts about playing him if there is something there that comes out of the game, but wait and see. But you've got Reagan Campbell-Gillard and Junior Barlow starting at the props positions there. Brendan Hands, who's part of that dummy half rotation alongside Matt Arthur, he'll start in the 9. We've got Sean Lane and Bryce Cartwright on the edges this week. No Kelma Tuolangi, of course, due to a broken hand or a suspension. Take your pick there. But he's out for about 2 months with that broken hand, so it's a real big loss to the Eels. Justice Hill's really starting to break through. Joe Ofungahi takes over at lock forward because Jermaine Hopgood, and again, this is another concern, is still getting scans on that back, and there's now talk about potential surgery pending results. So have to wait and see what is happening there. And obviously, we hope that Jermaine's okay. On the interchange, Matthew Arthur, of course, and he's joined there by Makahesi Makatoa, Ryan Madison, and making his debut this year, believe it or not. It feels like it's been should have been a lot sooner in terms of his form. But Matt Dury, welcome back to the NRL, mate. He's starting on the interchange with that injury to Kelma Tuolangi, and he's been very good in New South Wales Cup. Very well deserved call-up. On the extended roster, Dejan Arcee's there to cover Mitchell Moses, I imagine. Joey Lussick, Wiremu Greg, Jake Tungor getting the nod over Morgan Harper this week as that extra back on the shadow bench, with Charlie Geimer, probably the most notable inclusion there. We talked about the Eels starting the prep for either next year or just developing these prospects this year, 60s, and obviously Matt Arthur getting picked as the biggest one, but Charlie's presence there in the extended team means that he's not too far off a potential NRL debut as well.
Yeah, well, if he gets down to being the 18th or 19th man, it might be that he does another NRL warm-up.
Yes, good shout.
Before the game. So, yeah, that's interesting. Look, it is also interesting seeing Jake Tungor listed in the fresh reserves ahead of Morgan Harper. He's one that's come out of left field this year. I think it would be if we had a hole in the centres again, and it came down to a choice between Tungor and Harper, I think I would still go with Harper, mainly from that experience perspective, because it's and that might sound contradictory to what I was talking about before when it comes to let's see what the younger players have got. It's more that Tungor has really come out of the blue this year. He hadn't been a part of Eels pathways. He'd been picked up as well. I guess the plan was that he was going to be running around for Wenty this season, and he's made a decent fist out of winger, and then he's made that move from winger to centre, and he probably looked more of a centre playing on the wing, like when he was on the wing. Just I think primarily for his build, because he's a sort of a compact build. But anyway, nonetheless, credit to him for making so far the best of his opportunities that he's had so far. So, mate, and yeah, it will be good if this is an indication that Charlie Geimer is getting closer to a debut as well. So, John, all of those changes and players that are out and players on standby means that there's also been a few changes at New South Wales Cup level.
Yeah, part of that triple header out at McDonald Jones Stadium is obviously in the middle slot, given that it's reserve grade, and it's also being broadcast on New South Wales Rugby League TV, so a chance to watch that if you're not in the Newcastle district. But they are trying to back up from a pretty brutal loss, ugly conditions and even uglier football to the Canberra Raiders on the weekend. Zach Sini at fullback, you got Mulatalo and Lumi Lumi on the flanks, Jake Tungor and Harper in the centres. Provisionally right now, Dejan Arce will partner Ethan Sanders in the halves. Obviously, if there's anything with Mitchell Moses to monitor, that will change. But Luca Moretti and Wittemu Greg at prop, Joey Lussick dummy half, Dan Keir, I assume, will captain the team on the edge. Charlie Geimer returning to the edge this week. Obviously, he's played a fair bit of football, almost a 50-50 split now in terms of his reserve grade career thus far between edge and middle, but he's back on the edge this week with Brock Parker, another young guy that we do have a bit of time for, getting the start at lock forward. And speaking of young guys, Manny Lucas joined on the interchange by a couple of flag prospects in Jock Brazel and Saxon Pryke, so maybe your messaging already making a difference there. 60s, Reece Alderton rounding out the interchange rotation, and they're taking on the Newcastle Knights, obviously, who are in 9th place, the Parramatta's 10th, so this is obviously a pretty important one they need to have if they want to reset the momentum and get back on track.
Yeah, absolutely, and we'll talk about the lower grades performance shortly in covering it, doing a bit of a wrap of that. With regard to those selections in the lower grades, no, I don't think there's any messaging from me that's got through there, because the thing has been that there's been the odd occasion where someone like Saxon Pryke has got a run in reserve grade. What I want to see is more of these players getting a run, and if there's a rotation with them, that it involves them and another young player rotating.
Yeah, rather than them and the Ron Massey player or something like that.
Yes,
yeah,
correct. I because you can't have. I mean, there's too many that I want to see get a run at New South Wales Cup level. I've got about 5 or 6 listed that I'd like to see get a run at that level. And you can't have them all just suddenly put into New South Wales Cup, because you've obviously got players in New South Wales Cup that are there as a standby for the NRL as well. And it's just too many changes to make, and you'd have too many players that would be on the sideline who actually need to be getting football in case they are called up for NRL. I mean, it'd be a ridiculous thing to promote a whole lot of players and not play others. But I would like to see 2 or 3 of them rotated into the team every week. Now, whether 1 or 2 might end up getting a consistent game time, it remains to be seen. But I would certainly like to see every one of the players that I named get some game time between now and the end of the season. John, moving then to the Jersey flag, again, we see some more changes as a result of the players who have been elevated.
Yeah, that sort of cascading effect or ripple-on effect going all the way down to flag, and we see Upper Tweedle going from 5'8" to fullback this week to accommodate the return, again provisionally, of Joshua Lynn, who's in the halves partnering Matthew Hunter. Backline also has another change with Devonte Vivella coming into the centres for Antioch Faitala Mariner. That means that Muhammad Al-Madin, Araz Namva and Bo Newlands round out that backline. In the front row...
Can I just say, I think Antioch Faitala Mariner copped a nasty head.
In concussion protocols?
Concussion, yeah. I think so. From memory, it might have been towards the end of the first half that he copped a nasty hit. It could be that.
Which means in the front row, we see Sam Tuivasa looking to back up again from that big State of Origin effort he had in the 19s. We'll talk about that shortly. Alongside Tink and Brown as the 2 starting bookends. Riley Smith at dummy half. We've got an all-new back row because Brazil and Pryke are up in New South Wales Cup, as we see the Stratus boys, Raphael and Dom on the edge and lock respectively, and young Will Lewis getting a nod at the other starting berth on the edge. Interchange sees Yaya Ayachi as a dummy half utility, Tyrese Lekenny, one of the early SG Ball graduates there, continuing to ply his trade in flag. He's joined now this week by another SG Ball graduate, Javan Stevenson-Halla, big front rower, gets his first taste of flag as an Eel in this game against Newcastle Knights, with Damascus Nemia rounding out the interchange. Zach Hunter, who's been rock solid in the halves, is now the 18th man at the return of Lynn. Again, this could all change if Mitchell Moses is not backing up from State of Origin, which means you'd see one of Sanders or Dejan Arce playing first grade, then pulling Lynn up to the cup and thus bringing Hunter back into the halves to partner a different Hunter and Matthew. So a lot of moving pieces potential here, all sort of stemming from State of Origin and the fallout 60s, but still a good-looking flag team. A team that'll be hungry for a bounce-back win after letting a huge upset victory slip through their fingers against the Canberra Raiders on the weekend.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that in a moment. It's interesting because we've got Arpa Twiddle, who is moving from 5'8", where he seemed to have been finding a home, back to the fullback position. Now, I didn't include Arpa in my list of players that I'd like to see up in New South Wales Cup, not because I don't think he could play there, but I think it was just too tough to fit in. Josh Lynn, who I was expecting to play a lot of 5'8" at New South Wales Cup now between now and the end of the year. And I also wanted to see Arpa develop as a 5'8" rather than as a fullback, because I think that's possibly where his skill set is best suited at the Eels. So moving back to fullback, well, that's obviously due to personnel squeeze with Lynn coming back to 5'8" in the Jersey flag team. So that for mine is an interesting selection. You've got the look. I'd like to see Muhammad Al-Madin getting his shot in New South Wales Cup, but he's still there. He's brought a lot to the flag team this year.
I think, Moe's an easy pick. I think Sam Tuivasa needs to be graded at cup level as well this year. I think, you talked about the difficulties of it, but I would like to see Arpa getting time up there too, whether it's centre, 5'8", fullback, whatever the position is. I think he's versatile enough to play across multiple positions in that grade. So, yeah, they're the big three, I think. After that, Riley Smith has already gotten a taste. And if Matt Arthur is going to establish himself as that NRL interchange dummy half, there might be an opportunity for him in Riley to go up to Cup as the deputy to Joey Lussick. And then after that, I think it's more about getting the SG Ball guys into this team. But with those promotions going from flag to cup, opens up doors for other guys from this year's SG Ball class to get into flag now.
Well, the two main ones that I've mentioned that I'd like to see it be Dom Ferrugia and Josiah Funa Iuta. So I think there's space for those boys to come in there. Look, I think it's been important to see both the Destratus boys in the pack, because Dom's been getting regular game time in the flag team, and deservedly so. Raf has only been getting a little bit of time off the interchange and not on a regular basis. And I'm glad to see both of them starting this week. And look, I think they've got plenty to offer the flag team. So, well, as I said, we'll talk about why it was a bit of bad luck, and also where they, in the same sense, were still a master of their own destiny in that loss to the Raiders on Saturday at Granville. And let's, as we work towards that, let's first of all talk about the Eels' performances in the under-19s Origin team. John, we had 2 players in the men's, 2 players in the women's. Sam and Matty Arthur in the men's. But before that, we had Lindsay Tui and River Lialo in the women's. And Lindsay, unfortunately, sustained a broken jaw.
Yeah, but
No,
didn't stop her from scoring a try on the follow-up play, tougher than teak.
No, blood pouring out of her mouth, and takes off, catching the line dropout, and just fearlessly.
Well, full context, she forced the line dropout with a fearless hit that then broke her jaw and backed that up into catching the dropout, beating 2 chases and scoring. So it was a short but phenomenal stint from Lindsay. Pretty much what we didn't anticipate her breaking her jaw, but the quality of play was exactly what we were anticipating. 60s, a legitimate class above, and we know she's an NRLW caliber prospect given that she played there last season. So well done to Lindsay. I thought Riverly Arla was fantastic as well. Tireless through the middle. Commentators gave her a big plug in her second stint. She got through a ton of quality work, running really tough lines, getting through plenty of tackles too. We don't have player stats here, but if we did, I think she was well into the double digits for her runs and run meters, going into the triple digits, obviously. She was very good.
I think they did mention that her run meters were something like were about the second highest in the team.
Yeah, she had a fantastic game. So well done to both ladies there. And for Lindsay, all we can do now is wish her a speedy recovery, because she's got some NRLW we need to get heal up for. So
absolutely, and it's going to be a tough ask, because I would imagine if she gets back, it'll be in maybe partway through, or maybe past the halfway mark of the season for the NRLW. They've got a bit of a pre-season left to do, but it's, with it being a short season, it's doesn't leave a huge window of opportunity to get back there. But she is one tough lady, that's for certain. So we wish her all the best. And mate, the performance of our fellas in the men's 19s Origin, I said that I was going to mention the couple of things from my conversation with Woods on Saturday. He said that was pretty much the toughest.
It was so fast.
The toughest game that he played. Because the wrestle was low. Like, there just wasn't the wrestle in the game.
Mm-hmm.
It was fast. It was high impact in the tackles as a result of that. A lot of the players were feeling sore and sorry after the game, but I shouldn't say sore and sorry, because there was plenty of joy in the New South Wales team being able to get a win in such a high standard contest.
Best contest we've seen. Like, we've seen either side dominate a given game in the last few years, and I think New South Wales has had the better of the running between the two teams. But prior to that, Queensland had some wins to their name. but this was by far the best contest. Both teams gave it on both sides of the ball, big hits, great plays, great scramble. I got to say, Chevy Stewart 60s, we've seen a lot of him as a Canberra Raider versus the Eels, and he's had good games and he's had like medium games for a player that we know is very talented. This was the best I've seen him play.
I've never seen him. I've never seen him play a game like that. He was at a level that was above the player.
Yeah, in a game where there was lots of fantastic efforts, he looked like a guy that was a cut above. Obviously, we didn't get to see much of Jesse McLean because he knocked himself out. That's unfortunate. For the Eels, Matthew Arthur obviously co-captained the team. I thought by and large he played really, really well. You could see again that the vision and player identification was top shelf. The execution probably a little bit off because A, the circumstances you just mentioned, 60s about it being an insane contest on the sort of fatigue side, and B, it's not the usual troops he's running around with, so the timing is a little bit off. But in general, he was fantastic. He scored a crucial try. Where you saw what do all good fullbacks and dummy halves do? 60s, they back up, and that's why you saw both Arthur and Stewart backing up on that play down the left sideline to seal the game for the Blues. And then Big Sam Tuivasa, I thought his first stint was incredible. I thought he came out and really dominated the middle. Queensland didn't have an answer to him. He earned the penalty, some dominant runs, and I think he got a little bit lost in the interchange source after that. Bobcat brought him in real late for his second stint. So, and to be fair, there were other guys like Lars that was having a great game, and also when he wasn't dropping the ball, big Pasifiki Tonga had some good runs too. So, very, very good game. I really enjoyed watching this one, and the two Eels boys acquitted themselves very well, and there were some other players obviously on both sides of the park that enhanced their prospects on the way to a future NRL debut.
Yeah, I would have liked to have seen more game time for Sam because he really brought the impact in that first stint that he had, and I would have liked it to have continued a little bit longer. As for Woods, well, I thought the difference between the teams, that what gave New South Wales the edge was their spine, particularly with Woods at halfback, Arthur at dummy half, and Stewart at fullback. I thought those, and Elliott had a fair game as well at dummy at 5'8", but I thought those three were outstanding out in the field. They were probably the most dominant players. Obviously, Chevy Stewart, well and truly the best player on the field and deserving of man of the match. It was probably the easiest choice anyone would ever have had to have made for man of the match. But I thought both Woods and Arthur were outstanding contributors as well. And I think one of the things, a comment that I made after watching that game is, if that New South Wales team, under 19s team, was a team that played on a regular basis, say in a tournament or some form of competition, that the combinations would take them to a whole new level, because they only get that one game together. And you mentioned where like the pace of the game and maybe things didn't execute quite as well. I think that was the first game. I think if it was a 3-game series, and we don't advocate a 3-game series for under 19s in any way, but if it was a 3-game series, or if it was a team that was participating in a longer tournament, you would see some special things in that, because the players would start to read what each other were going to do. And, like, for example, someone like Woods Arthur, he sees opportunities during a game, and it doesn't always mean that the players around him see that same opportunity.
But you could see someone like Chevy Stewart potentially building a bond with Arthur from 1 and 9 there. And look, in that vein, and I sure hope that whether it's Hannay, Riles, or whoever else, that the Eels really take note of this game, because obviously it's a showcase for some of the best young players in the game that are either made their NRL debut recently or going to make NRL debuts. Because I know another club that clearly last year watched this game and said, you know what, we're going to focus our recruitment on these guys. And if you look at the players that were picked last year, including Parramatta's own Ethan Sanders, the Canberra Raiders have clearly bookmarked this contest as their premier recruitment platform now. They signed 319s reps from last year in Miles Martin, Ethan Sanders, and Sevilio, Tamales, as well as Ethan Strange, who they recruited from the Roosters prior. So it's a fantastic recruitment platform if you can use it, and the Raiders have done very well in that vein. And I think the Eels, as much as we want to be a development club, you still need to augment externally. This is probably one of the best places you can do to find guys that, maybe you've got to take a bit of a risk on, or, roll the dice on slightly, because, no one's a proven NRL deal until they go out and do it. But these are sort of calculated risks I think you sort of account for.
Yeah, and can I just say as well that there are 3 players who will still be with the Eels next year. Well, hopefully it stays this way. That have now played in the last 2 years in this under-19s Origin match, and that being Charlie Geimer, who played in it last year, Sam Tuiviti, who's played in that team for the last 2 years, and now Woods Arthur. Now, they should be players that the Eels make sure they look after and lock up and take them through to the next level of playing, being NRL. Now, obviously, there's a responsibility on the players themselves to be able to deliver on their promise. But, the fact remains that the Eels have had those 3 players that we've lost to in Ethan Sanders and also Michael Jabril, who played on the wing and had been part of the Eels system until he went to the Bulldogs and now to the Sharks.
Miles Martin as well. So there's 3.
And Miles Martin, who played last year and was part of the Eels at that Harold Matts level. So we've had 6 players who have been part of the Eels system in that team over the last 2 years, and we've lost 3 of them. We need to make sure that we keep and look after the 3 that we've got that are still there. And as you said as well, John, be looking very carefully at that team and seeing whether there's anyone else there that might fit the bill for the Eels' future recruitment. So, a very good performance from the under-19s. Finally, mate, well, not finally, but we'll move on. Lower grade. Look, can we let's just rip the Band-Aid off with that New South Wales Cup game. It was possibly the worst game of football that I've ever seen in my life.
Maybe even too pure for the purists, as we are badged at 60s when we were talking about it. It was, and you know what the crazy part is? Canberra 30-0 victors, and they'll sit in second on the ladder coming into this one. We knew it was going to be a tough game. That doesn't even tell the story of how many opportunities the Eels had to either take a lead or get back into this contest. Canberra scored tries in the 72nd and 77th minute that were both converted to, put the game from 18-0 to 30-0 to make a real exclamation mark. But prior to that, through the entire first half and deep into the second half, the Eels had more red zone opportunities than the Raiders, but dropped the ball every single time they got there. It was, brutal.
Yeah, it was brutal. I don't know what the completion rate was. Maybe you can get the stats on that for me, because
Raiders had a 54% possession rate, 80% completion rate, so played good wet weather football. Eels had in the end, they had their share of errors early on too. Eels had a 46% possession rate, and it's only marginally pipped by the completion rate, 48%, and that feels like it's too big a number, honestly.
Like in that first 30 minutes or so, I'm not sure how many completions were made in the match total, because the first 30 minutes felt like 30 days in terms of watching it. Like, it was so bad. And then I thought it can't possibly be as bad in the second half. Well, the Raiders improved marginally, and mostly in their completion rate. The Eels, if anything, were even worse. It was just an awful, awful game of rugby league. So I really don't want to say anything more about it. It was said to me that, in all likelihood, every single player in the Eels team had their worst game of the year in the one game. And that might well be a fair comment.
It's hard to argue against it. Zach Senny produced some good moments at the back, taking some challenging high kicks and making some counterpunch runs. But in general, it was a pretty big bludger from 1 to 17, including just a multitude of what you would label brain dead drops. I'm sure the players would own up to it too. And I know the conditions were awful, but they played terrible football. So got to put that one behind them and get back on track against Newcastle Knights, because goodness.
Well, there'd been a decent run of form that the New South Wales Cup team had up to this, and they really this was. I don't even know if there's any point in talking.
I mean, the big thing we mentioned earlier was first game without Matthew Arthur, and obviously they got a senior player back in Joey Lussick, but it shows you, and we spoke about it, how much that Arthur has been the heartbeat and the engine for this team. Is he kept them on time and in position consistently, and was providing a lot of the platform that they were capitalising on. So hopefully, as much as it's going to be to the chagrin of the New South Wales Cup, hopefully he can bring that to the NRL. I suppose that's the sort of weird silver lining out of this when you see that result. And, of course, that takes us to the Flag 60s, where they were 2-point losers to the top of the table Canberra Raiders in a game where they had all their opportunities and then some to spring that big upset and get one step closer to the top 6, but fell just short.
Fell 2 minutes short. Or the game lasting 2 minutes longer than they really wanted it to. Well, maybe 3 minutes, but it was one of those games where the Eels were, I regarded them as the better team on the day.
Mm-hmm.
You should always say, I guess, that the better team takes full advantage of their opportunities, and the Eels didn't. And I thought there were a couple of key moments. One was the missed conversion attempt from Arpa Twiddle that was only just to the right of the posts. This is in the first. I think it was in the first. No, it was, or was it early in the second half? I'm trying to might be losing track. But anyway, it wasn't a difficult conversion attempt, and I reflected in the blog, I hope that doesn't
come back to haunt him,
myth.
and goodness gracious.
Yeah, and it did. And I mean, mind you, Arpa banged over a cracking conversion from the touchline, I think, in his next kick.
Yeah, the third
so
try.
He's just had an abysmal strike of the ball where, I mean, it didn't even go close. The one that he missed 2 conversions, but that particular one was like, it was almost like he had no concentration on that kick. And then he's more than made up for it with an absolutely phenomenal conversion from the sideline with his next kick. But we had many opportunities, a couple of tough calls against the Eels as well. But probably that the turning point was right near the end, where the Eels had a chance to force the ball for a try at the Raiders' end of the field. We didn't. It gave them a 20-metre restart, and they went the length of the field and scored. And that was it. I mean, a try scored up the other end, that's game, set, and match. That's at least an 8-point lead, potentially a 10-point lead, with only a couple of minutes left on the clock. So, unfortunate. That's rugby league, I guess. Hopefully they remain buoyant, even despite the loss, because they really took it to the Raiders. They've been playing so much better than they were at the start of the year. So much better. So, fingers crossed that they can bring that this week. In other news, mate, there was a trial match
You
for
wouldn't know
the
about it, though.
Harvey Norman. Sorry?
You wouldn't know about it, that there was a trial match. There was no
No, no.
coverage of it.
So my understanding is that they were due to play against the Sharks in a trial match on Sunday, I think it was, and they arrived there at the ground only to be told, "No, we're calling the match off." Obviously, the conditions of the field, and so it was then played last night, Monday night, at Granville, and the Eels took that out 16-8. So that's a good hit out. There were a number of players there that would be familiar to people that follow the Eels in the junior reps with the Tarsha Gale Cup. So that was their inaugural hit out in the Harvey Norman competition, albeit a trial game. So it's a nice way to start a 16-8 trial win against the Sharks, and the Sharks have always been a strong club in women's rugby league. So that's an encouraging start there. And finally, mate, in the last of our Eels news tonight,
We fought the good fight.
oh, we have we what? Hallelujah. Pay attention to this, everyone who goes to the Eels home games at CommBank Stadium. The recorded Eels chant is gone. It is kaput. No more. And thank the Lord and anyone else that's helped to bring this about, because it has been a horrible blight on Eels home matches. And I don't say that lightly, because for mine, it's been an embarrassment to have a recorded chant playing, and it really reached ridiculous proportions in that last home game against the Roosters, especially when one of the recording chant went on for about 90 seconds non-stop. It's done. So let's let the crowd go back to chanting for your team. Cheering for your team is an organic thing.
Yeah.
The crowd has a feel for the game. And if the crowd hasn't warmed in for the game, we don't need a recording played for the team.
Yeah, I agree.
And that
I
last
agree.
game, it wasn't being done to get the crowd to chant along.
Over a minute of canned chants, like
Yeah. So anyway, it's done. It's kaput. We won't need to worry about it anymore. So great news. And mate, talking about recordings, over to you.
yeah, we missed the trick this week because I went with the Spanish route this week, a bit of flamenco guitar with a little bit of a nod towards Quentin. He's not here, so we're going to persevere and hopefully the listeners enjoy it. But this is Ken's theme from the old Street Fighter franchise, but as a flamenco guitar rearrangement. So hopefully you guys enjoy.
John, I'm sure I heard that track when I was on hold for about an hour to the ANZ call centre, I think in the Philippines, for a little banking issue that I had recently.
Well, that's some that's some of the better hold music you're probably going to get compared to some of the stuff I've dealt with in the past.
If it wasn't that, it was being played in the waiting room when I was at the dentist and waiting for my tooth to be extracted. So, yeah, well done. And unfortunately, our resident podcaster who would truly appreciate the flamenco guitar wasn't there tonight. So Clint will no doubt be listening to this podcast in the next 24 hours. So Clint, there you go, mate. That one was for you. Okay, John, we move into the NRL news, and you've got a bit of the weekend wrapped for us. Not as many matches to go through, but certainly crazy results.
Yeah, it's a tipster's nightmare, as we were speaking about with Mick Butner a couple of weeks ago now. And the split round continued to produce those sort of results. Melbourne Storm prevailing, as expected, I imagine, favourites in this one, 30-24, in a pulsating encounter against the Redcliffe Dolphins, or the Dolphins. Redcliffe really pushing Melbourne in this one, and it took a second half flurry from Melbourne to get over the line. Then probably the most shocking result of the week was the Gold Coast Titans and the New Zealand Warriors playing out the Devils game. 6-6-6 was the scoreboard here, with the Titans absolutely walloping the New Zealand Warriors in a franchise record, I believe. I think Jaden Campbell scored 32 points, I think, with only one try to his name, 11 from 11. Well, that'll be 26 points then if you're doing the maths there. So there you go. I was 10 points over once I looked at the score sheet there. So absolutely demolishing the Warriors, who, for all the talk about, being a team on the rise, they've struggled massively for consistency this year. And I think the issues of Parramatta and prior to that, South Sydney, have really masked their struggles in the media, plus the fact that they're not a Sydney franchise, which always helps. But they've got some serious issues going down there.
The wars and their woes.
Yes, the wars and their woes is probably a good way of putting it, 60s. And then you've got the Roosters and the Dogs after that. This game was played in torrid conditions out at Gosford, and I thought it was actually a pretty good game considering Canterbury being quite aggressive in their play style, scoring a couple of nice tries, but that was it. As they went down 26-8, the 2 tries, no conversions, meaning they were never really in the contest despite their best efforts. Rabbitohs continue, I wouldn't call it a resurgence just yet, but they continue to bounce off the bottom of the ladder now for a 14-0 win. And speaking of the bottom of the ladder, 60s, the West Tigers have an upset 48-24 victory over the Raiders, boosting their for and against and consigning a certain club that wears blue and gold to the provisional bottom of the ladder right now on points differential. Care of that upset result against Canberra. Seriously, the Raiders, they love to play spoilers against us and then do harm to us in other games by losing against lower seeded teams. So that's the weekend wrap, mate. Tigers game, very entertaining. Lots of points scored in that one. Although the Tigers did struggle for man in the bin, allowing the Raiders to bang out 3 tries in the space of 6 minutes. But they were still too good with tries to plenty of their young players there. Galvin bagging a double, Fainu, Toika Manu, and then obviously core players like Coruscant and the returning Dwahi also getting on the scorer sheet.
It was fair to say that defence was not a priority in that.
It is very fair to say.
And it's also fair to say that we've become the West Tigers in season 2024 right now. I mean, they're at least generating some positive headlines of recently with regard to being able to, I guess, debut some young players or have some young players have some strong performances. In all honesty, that game on the weekend, I don't know if it said too much about the Tigers. The Raiders were beyond shocking.
Yeah, the Raiders were terrible. Like the Warriors, it was kind of hard to gauge how good Gold Coast or West were, because obviously they played good football, but their opponents played so poorly that it sort of muddies the water in terms of the overall contest.
Yeah, it makes you wonder how teams that are capable of playing so well, and maybe to an extent you could throw the Eels in there, although we haven't had too many of those games where you could talk about how well we can play. But when you've got sides like the Raiders and the Warriors who can pull out some, really terrific performances, that they could plumb the depths with those games. I guess last year we also had the Cowboys getting hammered by the West Tigers in a game, but then turn around and completely reversing it when they played them the next time, surpassing the record score that the Tigers put on them. To be honest, apart from that intercept try that Dwayne took, I honestly thought that if the game was going to go for another 5 to 10 minutes longer, that the Raiders were going to run the Tigers down.
They were coming home for wet sail, and like you said, that intercept try obviously completely sealed the deal for West, but there was a little bit of uncertainty prior to that. It's like, how many more minutes did the Raiders need? And it wouldn't have been too many more than the 80 that you get assigned in a regulation game.
Yeah, but one of the things that did stand out for me across the weekend's games was how important pace is in today's game.
Yeah.
Like how much of an edge having some really fast
forwards with leg speed, backs with genuine pace.
Yeah,
like they both add up. And again, it's something the Eels have been lacking in. And it's not to say you can't have your power forwards in particular, but you need to augment them and balance them out with, guys that are a little bit more agile and have that leg speed, and especially in the back line where, speed is everything. And even for someone like Penrith, whose back line is probably more constructed in the workers, I call not even workers probably doing them the service, but in the powerhouse mould, they've still got guys like Tungor and obviously prior to off-field indiscretions, Taylor May, who bring legitimate pace to the equation too. So the Eels just haven't found that balance, and that's something.
And the other thing too, John, is there's certainly become that space in the game for the fast, lightweight fullback.
Yes. Obviously, if you can get yourself a Greg Inglis or a Jarryd Hayne, you take them. But the 180 centimetre fullback or thereabouts, that's a bit more of a dynamo or a bit more of a pocket rocket. And even smaller, because we saw Keanu Kearney for the Titans. We're seeing plenty of those guys in that sort of 180 or a bit smaller mould, really starting to carve out names themselves and starting to flourish in the current interpretation of the game.
Yeah. So it's probably one of those areas where the Eels have some players with decent pace in the back. So, like, probably our fastest player has been out injured in Arthur Miller-Stephen, and there are players with the sort of pace they need for their positions. I'm talking about, in the junior reps, like Dom Ferrugia. His top pace out on the wing is quite fast. It's not in that elite pace, but it's fast. Cyrus Bloomfield at fullback in the Harold Matts. He's more got Latrell Mitchell sort of running style, hasn't he? It's like that loping sort of.
Yeah, big, powerful upright runner.
Deceptively fast.
Yeah, I mean, he's scored his fair share of breakaway tries in the Mats this year, so definitely, someone to consider in that mold. Like you said, maybe not conventionally speeds the sort of profile, but definitely has the pace. So, yeah,
it's not a leg speed. You're not seeing fast leg speed.
Yeah,
you're seeing, as I said, it's like it's a deceptive speed, because, as you pointed out, he's scored those tries where he sliced through and players haven't been able to get near him. But it's one of those ones where that we haven't got anyone in the club, say, who is a Josh Adokar or a Jason Sarr.
Yeah, just that genuinely elite speedster.
Or the hammer, in terms of that, just that elite level speed. Now, maybe there's not a huge number of those across the NRL, but certainly these lightweight fullbacks that we've been seeing at the Dolphins, at the Titans, that have just at the Storm, what's that young bloke's name that's coming through behind that filled in
Yeah,
the
Fayoso, Farlong, or sorry, saw Luvi Farlong, or who's been once again like in that pocket rocket mold. Trey Fuller, backup fullback for the Dolphins. Obviously, we mentioned Keanu Keeney. The Warriors have a backup fullback too, a young guy, Tuapiki, I think it is, who also is right in that mold. Even we mentioned him in the 19s Origin, but Chevy Stewart's 182 centimeters. Like, he is not a powerhouse fullback, but he brings that sort of almost like old school Brett Mullins sort of build, doesn't he? Where it's speed and a bit more litheness rather than being again, these guys are very well built athletes still at 182 centimeters, but they're not athletic freaks like these monsters. So there's definitely the way the game is right now, and I mean we mentioned other fullbacks like the Cronulla fullback Will
Kennedy.
That's the one there. Yep. Newcastle's had a stack of fullbacks behind Callum Ponga this year, who obviously we're going to see this weekend in action. But I believe it's Sharp this week, and prior to that, it was the one that was going to going to the ESL in Armstrong. So all these guys that the way the current interpretation of the game is, the rules are, guys that can create or capitalize on space and open up these fractional gaps with acceleration, they're king right now. So really interesting to see the game take this twist, and you don't want to be playing catch up, and unfortunately the Eels are. So either you
do you think it's because, I mean, we're seeing in the game that teams are chancing their hand at their own end of the field against.
We are seeing way more aggressive structure. Or even interchange of structure between conventional stuff and more play what's in front of you, options from your own half. I mean, you look at the Bulldogs game; it was absolutely pissing down out at Gosford, and they were playing really aggressive football from their own half, and that's how they scored their tries. And they created more opportunities too, but the Roosters were good enough to negate them. So I think right now that's where the game is at, and for the Eels, it's now this game within a game of, do you try and play catch up with your recruitment and development to the current model of the game, or is that model going to change by the time you get there? And whoever is the new head coach is going to have to figure that out very quickly, because it becomes, when you're playing catch up, it sucks because you're always behind the 8 ball, and unless you have a big breakthrough somewhere and get maybe a bit of luck, you're never really going to catch up. So do you then try and predict the next change in the metagame in rugby league, which is always comes with its own risks and perils as well. So it's not the position you want to be in, but it is interesting in that sort of abstract way. And that's the weekend wrap there, mate. And as we power through, if I just check our timing now, because we actually end up rambling for a fair bit for power stuff, hour 12 in, hour 13 in, we can turn our eyes towards the big fixtures on Wednesday and Thursday now.
Yeah, so we've got the men's Origin game tomorrow. Well, it'll be, for people listening
today,
this podcast, it'll be tonight. So we've got the Origin game. I mean, can the Blues level the series, in your opinion, with a few changes that they've made, John?
They sport the better record in Victoria, I believe, and I think that the changes to the team have been by and large positive. Dylan Edwards was meant to be their game one. Mitchell Moses was meant to be their game one. I think that brings really nice balance to both the back line and the overall playmaking stakes for the team. Latrell, look, it's going to be a divisive pick. He is a polarizing character, but he has the past results at this level to be worth taking the risk on. If it's a close game, maybe he can blow it open with a big individual effort. Crichton obviously is in fantastic form. Zach Lomax had a great game one debut. My biggest criticism of the team, and again, I hate to pile onto the guy, but it's, Jake as both captain and being picked to start. Jake Debojevic, I think he played 20-something minutes in game one, and you can talk about being a player down, but that's when you need your core players to stand up, and they didn't trust him to get on the field and do it. So, look, Haas, there's been question marks about where he stands as a, cornerstone for the Blues and how he needs to start delivering. He's still got the talent. Martin, Crichton, Murray's a good back row. Interchange, Connor Watson could have gone a few different ways here. Matt Burton probably unlucky, but Watson is a genuine utility. Yo, not a huge fan of him on the interchange. I think you pick him to start or you don't pick him at all. I don't think he brings what you want from an Origin interchange forward in those limited opportunities, but Olakwatu and Lenu definitely fit that mold. So I think it's a much better team in balance. Still not the perfect team based on who's available, but I think that it's a good team, a team that can get the win, but it's still going to be a difficult task because that Queensland team is fearsome.
Yeah, so they'll need something better from Jake Turbo. If they're going to select him, then I think if you're the starting prop, you've got to play more minutes. I'm a bit like you, John. I wouldn't be picking him in an Origin team. Now, I don't mean that as disrespect to Jake Trbojevic at all. He's one of those players where he's he's $1 million player for his club because of what he brings in terms of intangibles to their team. And you know, to an extent, he's like the Manly version of Gutho, where Gutho is worth $1 million to the Eels in terms of all the intangibles, the spirit that he plays the game, the effort that he puts into the game. He's the outstanding players at club level who have been fringe representative players. I think there's an element of both being the same in that regard, high value club players. And again, that's not meant as a disrespect of them. It's meant as a compliment because there are players who will go down in their club's history as being greats for the club, and I think both of them will go down as greats for their respective clubs. But I can't fit Jake into that Origin team. For mine, Spencer Leniu would be a far better proposition coming into the team in starting proposition. Even when he would come off the bench for his club, I still think he's a real Origin type player. I would be going with him and looking for someone else on the bench to bring the impact to the bench. Jake isn't an impact player.
No, and look, you go around the traps, and I mean, I know benefit the Tigers if he was picked in terms of that contract option, but you've got Stefano Utoikamanu, who screams Origin player, and I don't really know why he's not in the fold right now. That one is one that comes immediately to mind. There's obviously the Saifiti boys, but I think probably the ship sailed there, much like with Para's boys in Reg and Junior. You're probably looking for new blood here, but Stefano immediately comes to mind, and I'm sure that there are options beyond that. Moses Leota can't be Origin eligible, otherwise he would have played right now. There's no way he wouldn't be in the mix. So there's obviously a good player that you can't pick, but Terrell May, you talk about the May boys. Terrell's been tearing it up for the Roosters. There's another option as well. So, yeah, Jake Trbojevic, obviously heart and soul of Manly, tremendous leader, worth plenty to the club there, but State of Origin, I think there's better options.
Well, look, I hope he proves us completely wrong.
Oh, look, always, on a state versus state basis, you always want to see the Blues rise up. But I think there's been enough work. He's been picked enough times now that we know who he is at State of Origin.
Yeah, I'd agree. So, what's your call, mate? It seemed to me you were saying before, New South Wales have improved their back line, got a little bit of a better bench. Is that enough then to get the edge over the Maroons?
I'm going to say it is, for the sake of a good series and the fact that the Blues do have a reasonable record down in Victoria. Queensland, the Blues went blow for blow for them for a good amount of that game where they were down a man. And as much as Hammer carved up, it's also without Reece Walsh. And a team that has both Reece Walsh and Hammer or Hamiso Tabuai-Fidow is obviously better than a team that just has the Hammer. So the question is, which team improves more by having those respective elements of their roster restored? And Queensland are going to come out with a bit of fire and brimstone. I wouldn't be surprised if there's some legitimate aggression that pushes to the line as a retribution for what happened, whether it was intent or not. I sort of look at that hit that Joseph Swiley got wrong, and then look to Jarrell Skelton on the weekend who got it right, and I think it was more that was what the messaging was, right? Like they wanted the big hit, but not to get it wrong. So that doesn't make a difference to these two teams, though, and it's going to put a powder keg on what will be a very, very explosive game too. I'll tip the Blues to win, but win close.
Yeah, I'd like to tip the Blues close. I don't like the rumours coming out about the foot injury to Mitch Moses, given his time out with the
for Liz Frankie fracture before, bit spooky, and for the Parramatta Eels more so than the Blues because it's a bit like the old African proverb, my town before my country, my family before my town, and me before my family, or something like that. It's very much my club before my state in this thing. So if Mitch is going to hurt himself again, then I will be very, very upset.
Yeah, same here, mate. So look, I'll back the Blues to get it in a narrow one. We turn then to Thursday night with the women's Origin game.
Yeah.
That series is at 1-1. This is the decider, and thankfully we do get a decider in the women's game. I think it's fair to say that the Queenslanders got out of jail in the last.
No doubt, but they're the sort of get out of jail games that can swing series, and it's got me a little bit spooked.
Yeah, look, I still like the pace and power of the New South Wales team, and I think if they get the dry conditions, then and even though it's up in Queensland, I'm going to back them to get the job done, and I'm going to back them to get the job done comfortably, like 10 to 12 point.
I think it's either a solid New South Wales win or a heartbreaking Queensland victory, because I know the Blues sport a good record, unbelievably sport a good record up there at Queensland CommBank Stadium, but this series has all the makings of Queensland breaking hearts. Getting dusted up game one, squeezing out an improbable victory in game two to come home and set it up to take it all. So New South Wales to win comfortably, or Queensland to barely eke it out and break our hearts?
Who's New South Wales the key player for you?
I mean, look, they've got talent across the park. That backline's very good. Tonagato, Chapman, Surges, Kelly, Panatani, Baxter and Pearson from 1 to 7. But we know that at high levels, at Origin in particular, the forwards often dictate the tone of this game, and I think that it's going to come down to those middles, the 8, 10, 13 sort of pair-ups there. Can the likes of Elliott and Johnston Green alongside Koenig, take ascendancy for the middle over Martor, Elliston and Joseph? And it's, a couple of good trios of middles there. Obviously bring the rotational forwards into the mix as well. Maybe if you're talking about interchange players, Togatuki, she's carved up at the NRLW level for quite a while. If there's an interchange forward that can tip this game, isn't one of the starters, I'd look at Sarah Togatuki, who's very nimble on her feet for a middle and can cause some issues if she gets good ball and is in good form.
Yeah, for mine, it's more what the key player isn't so much one New South Wales player. I think it'll be the capacity of the New South Wales players to shut down Taryn Aiken.
Yes,
because
very,
I think
very
if you shut down Taryn Aiken, you completely shut down the Queensland team.
Only 24 years old. She's been around forever, it feels like.
Yeah, so she is just an absolute superstar of the women's game, and when you're talking about some of the players that are emerging in women's rugby league, she's just got that capacity to create something out of nothing, not just for herself but for the others around her. And I thought she went a long way towards carrying the Queensland team to that heartbreaking victory over the Blues in the last game.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I'm gonna say that overall, I think the New South Wales team has the edge in speed and power. Aiken's not so much that speed and power as a player as she's got I think the speed between the ears. She just reads the game incredibly well, and has because she's quite a lightweight player in terms of body size, but they've a little bit of acceleration, picking her moments to run. Just being able to set up the players around her. I just think she's a tremendous rugby league player. So, but I'm going to tip I will tip the Blues to win 10 to 12 points on the basis that they do shut her down as well. So, and now that leads us really into the final thing to talk about, which is that we've found out today that Jarryd Hayne will not face a fourth trial for his sexual assault charges, and basically it looks like he's going to be a free man from here on in. So, and I think the NRL announce that he's going to be able to keep his Dally M awards? He's not going to be stripped of those now?
I missed any such announcement, but I also haven't been keeping my ear to the ground of NRL news recently, so that wouldn't surprise me. Look, it's been confirmed that they won't go to a fourth trial, which means that Haynes' legal status returns to a pre-trial basis where the accuser can make the accusation, but nothing is gone to trial. There is nothing against his name, so he hasn't been found guilty, but he also has not been found not enough proof of anything like that. So he's in a pre-trial state, which means in terms of his public record, it should be back to a pre-trial state, which means he can have his Dally M medals, his honours across rugby league, both as an Eel and beyond. And look, we know this is a sensitive topic. There's going to be people on both sides of the ledger here arguing for and against whether there should be more legal action taken. The reality is that evidence was withheld and disposed of by one party that came to light as a pretty serious breach, which is why I imagine that the public resources won't be invested any further to a fourth trial, and people are going to have their views on Jarryd one way or the other, because this was a very long and protracted and public sequence of events. Sorry, but like I said, his public record now returns to a pre-trial status, which, like you said, Sixties probably either has or will open the way for his Dally M records to stay and everything around that. So you can't.
Well, I don't think. I mean, there's been, whether you're on the side of, Jarryd Hayne being guilty or not guilty, it's as far as the court system is concerned now. He's a free man.
Correct.
I think the decision leaves him free to pursue a wrongful conviction damages case. I think that was one of the things that was discussed. His life's not going to be the same again, regardless of whatever happens. Retaining Dally M medals or whether he gets any sort of payout. It's there has been some punishment that's been meted out to.
I mean, he's spent legitimate time behind bars. If you're on the side that he is guilty, then at least to some degree there has been a serving of justice to what you'd imagine would be your effect. But on the flip side, if you think that he's innocent or wasn't guilty, whichever way, if you think that means different things, then there's absolutely a corridor for him to pursue wrongful conviction and the damages that come with it. So unfortunately, I don't think that we've seen the end of this, unless Jarryd wants to ride off into the sunset quietly. But given how impactful it's been on his life, I wouldn't blame him if he went the other way. Whichever way it does go, I don't think it's going to change people's opinions on the matter, whether they were for or against him, because this is one of those polarizing topics. And
because it's polarizing, we might just leave it there.
Yeah, I don't think we need to fan flames on that one, because there's good reasons to be for and against on both sides. So that brings us to the conclusion of what we thought was going to be a relatively brief show without Quint, but it turns out we're the yappers here. So we hit the hour and a half mark. But with the State of Origin preview and obviously the huge news surrounding Matthew Arthur's NRL debut and the latest in the Parramatta coaching pursuit, there was some legitimate stuff to air out and discuss, 60, so I'm not too upset by a lengthy podcast on this particular news and NRL podcast. So thank you for going around the traps of me having a good yap. And speaking of thanks, as always, another shout out to our sponsors, In-Star Partners Real Estate, Auburn Rowan and Parramatta. Couldn't do it without them. And on that note, we've got plenty of Parramatta football this weekend on Saturday. The triple header against Newcastle, we'll be previewing that later this week. We've got State of Origin on Wednesday and Thursday. Tons of football to talk about in the wake of it. And until then, I'll leave you with the final note, mate.
Go you mighty Eels.